Hello, and welcome. I'm Waxing Philosophical, and today we're going to talk about knowledge, which seems like it should be a pretty obvious thing, which is why we've really got to talk about it, because it's much less obvious than it might at first appear. What it is, how it is that we come to have it, how we understand what it means, how we know it's right, and if we can know these things, what it is and that it is right, why is there so much controversy over meaning and perspective and about what truth means? Well, that's kind of what I want to get to the bottom of today. So without further ado, let's get to it. So the reason why I want to begin with knowledge is, well, everything that we're going to be talking about on this channel is going to fall into this category of knowledge. That which we know, everything that we can think about, everything that humans do falls under this category. That's why there's so much emphasis put on it. We'll talk about the emphasis, the importance of knowledge, language, and metaphysics. These three things are all very closely related. How we understand each of them all depends on all of the others. Their relationship is inextricable. It can't be taken apart. So with philosophy, typically we like to engage in a process of abstraction. So we take ideas and we separate them out as much as we can from the actual particular place in the world at which we found it, make abstractions about it, and based on those abstractions we come up with other ideas or general categories of ideas. And categories is kind of where I'm going with this today, and probably is going to be the underlying theme for the next few videos that I release, because I think that there's a lot of benefits to understanding truth and knowledge categorically. When we think about when somebody says that that's categorically false, this is often a colloquial phrase, but it has its roots in philosophy. And when someone makes that claim, especially in the world of philosophy, it doesn't mean the same kind of thing as "I disagree with you" or "I think that you might be wrong." When we say something is categorically false, it means that it can't possibly be true. For it to be true would be a paradox, which is kind of important. These things, category, so far as our understanding of what is necessary for the existence of a thing, paradox, these are axioms of metaphysics. These are going to be fundamental truths which must be true, because if they're not, everything else in existence ceases to make sense, really. We depend on these axioms to be true for them to make sense to us, because that's what forms the foundation for all of our other knowledge, right? So we have these axioms that things exist, right? That's a simple axiom, that I am a conscious being who has consciousness. Going back to Descartes, I think therefore I am. We'll definitely crack into that in depth later on. But simply that things exist is something that we take for granted. It's something that we assume is true about the world. But without this axiom, other knowledge is not possible. The fact that we exist in a time and place from which we experience the world phenomenologically, which is something else that we'll probably delve into in great detail later too, is phenomenology. This is an axiom of existence upon which we are going to build all of our knowledge. And so it's very important that we understand these axioms that we're depending on, because some of them we're not so sure about. And when we shift an axiom ever so slightly, it might not seem like a big deal to our everyday lives of going to work and feeding ourselves and whatever it is that we have to do throughout the day. But when it comes to what we can know, what is within our grasp epistemologically. Epistemology is a fancy word for human knowledge. What's in our grasp epistemologically is going to depend on these axioms as they're understood. So if we make a slight shift in these axioms, it does matter. It has a metaphysical significance on what is possible within this universe. For example, if we have the assertion that we are merely determined beings and there is no such thing as free will, on one hand, as opposed to the opposite, which is that we have at least some free will. We're not entirely determined. The truths that are true about these two metaphysical states of affairs are going to have a lot of overlap. Right? Whether or not we are determined beings with free will, we are still made of flesh. We still have to eat. We still feel pain. Right? These things are true in both of these. But that I chose to wear a red shirt today is not something which is true. Right? And what is epistemologically knowable about the world, again, changes when we make these shifts in axioms. So we'll talk about essence, what is essential to something which exists, for something to exist as itself, and we'll talk about the idea of Aristotelian essence or human essentialism. Will all be lumped into that same category. We'll also talk about synthetic a priori knowledge, which is going to be very important for understanding categories and how categories work, how we can know things categorically based on this relationship that we have with synthetic a priori knowledge, which is another metaphysical axiom given to us by Immanuel Kant, which is constitution, that the world is thus because we constitute it so. We'll talk about Immanuel Kant's constituting consciousness and the constitutor that does the constituting in a world so constituted. Right, we'll talk about that. We'll definitely talk a lot about paradoxes, and we'll use paradoxes to be able to arrive at what we would consider absolute truths, so far as reason allows us, so far as something is epistemologically available. If it is something which can be known, then paradoxes are what we would use to help make sense of that, to help make that clear, to prove that it must exist as such, as something which is knowable, which will take us down the rabbit hole of transcendental deduction, which is really quite an excellent exercise, something that is going to take us down the path of existentialism, but then I'm going to want to take that question, the transcendental question used in transcendental deduction, and apply it to pretty much everything. Whatever it is that we want to accomplish, we'll ask ourselves, what are the necessary conditions for that to be accomplished? If we want to be a certain kind of person, what are the necessary conditions for that to be actualizable? Something which is within our capacity to achieve. So we're going to talk about all of these things. But what I would like to hear from you is what of these things that I've mentioned so far, really interests you. What kind of pursuits do you think would be most fruitful, most helpful in your life? Think about that and shoot me a comment down below. I'll see what I can do to answering your question, incorporating it into the next video. My hope is that I'm going to be able to put one of these out every week. I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep up with that. That will depend on my school schedule. I teach at 2 different universities, and those responsibilities come first. Students always come first. And then my institutional duties are going to come right after those. And then whatever else I have going on in the world, I have stuff to do too. So, but I would like to get one of these out a week, maybe more. I don't know. We'll see. Really kind of depends on you guys. So, let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon.